Wee, what's going on YouTube? It's Donnie B all day, punishing Donnie B all day. So, here's the deal. I got a couple things today. We are bringing you a knife. I am going to ask a favor, and I'm going to give a shout out. Now, the shout out, I was talking to Scab yesterday, and Scab said, dude, Ron T. Sawyer's at $4.99, $4.99. Let's get him to $500. So I'm like, man, definitely, because Ron's awesome. And so it was like, you know, Scab says, hey, man, let's get him to $500. He only needed one. And he was stuck on $4.99 for a while. So I'm like, I'm going to give Ron T. Sawyer, a shout out because he deserves it. Now, you guys remember Tom Sawyer, right? Everybody remembers Tom Sawyer, right? Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer ran away. And so when Tom Sawyer later in life, he became famous for running away, basically, right? Later in life, he ended up having a child. A lot of people don't know this. And Tom Sawyer wanted to name his child after him, Tom Jr., but he decided against it. And then he thought, well, maybe I should just name my child Runaway Thomas Sawyer, and then I could just call him R.T. Sawyer. And then people told him Runaway is kind of a stupid name, so he said, well, how about Ron? I'll just name him Ron, right? Because Ron is run, run. So it was Runaway, basically, Ron Tom Taylor. And so, you know, that's it. Ron T. Sawyer, not Taylor, Ron T. Sawyer is the son of Tom Sawyer, the run. If you believe that one, then you guys are. So, obviously, I'm not going to give Ron T. Sawyer a shout-out to get to 500 because he's now at 502. Now I'm just going to give him a shout-out because the guy's awesome. Still, get over there. Check out his channel. Sub. The guy's really, really good. So, here's the deal. We're bringing you a knife. Before I give you this knife or bring you this knife or show you this knife, I'm going to ask you to go down into the description and you're going to see, and I know you guys are going to hate the sound of this GoFundMe because that usually means somebody's asking for money. Oh, no. I served in Afghanistan with a guy whose name I cannot say because they're being hunted by the Taliban right now. Anybody who worked for or with Americans, they risk their own lives to do this, right? They literally put their lives on the line to make our lives easier over there. Like, we would not have survived without the help of these guys. So I'm putting up a GoFundMe because I have a really good friend. The guy's like a brother to me. I'm talking to him every day. He's explaining to me what's happening out there and what these bad guys are doing. And it's not good. It's not good. And he needs help escaping. He's got a very, very young child. And he needs to get out of where he is. He can't make it here, but at least if we can get him out of there, and it all comes down to just funding to be able to get him packed up and into a vehicle and moved out of this area so we can try to save the life of a hero who helped my life. So I'm adding the GoFundMe down there. Obviously, anything is going to help. Anything. I don't care what it is. Anything is going to help. I mean, think about it. If we can get 100 people to give $5, then we're doing something good for this guy. So, so check out in the description the link to the GoFundMe, please. Now, the knife. I was at Smoky Mountain Knife Works in Tennessee. Awesome freaking place. I mean, way better than I could have ever imagined. And I bought a few things, and one of the things I got was this Condor Jungle Bowie. So at first I was kind of confused with this buoy when I first saw it because of its thickness. It's 0.14 inches thick, something like that, right? It's like half of a quarter inch pretty much. I mean, it's thin. And I thought, are they selling this as a buoy or a machete? And then I put it in my hand and I thought, man, this thing's a knife. It's a knife, man. It feels like it's going to knife. I'm noticing, though it's built like a machete, it's got the thin machete type stock. The edge isn't super sharp. It's more like a machete. But the way it feels in the hand, it's almost like it's like the Cold Steel Bowie machete, right? It's a machete technically because of how it's built and what it's made of, but it's still a Bowie, man. It's still a knife. And this thing, I guess for places that have legality purposes where you can't really carry a knife, but, you know, if you're working, you can carry a machete, you can have your machete with you. Who knows? Maybe they took this into consideration. But this thing, I guarantee, is going to be a machete-type slasher through, like, brush and stuff. Because it's so thin, it's going to have very, very little drag. And I like that. Let's look at some of the specs on this guy. Let's see. It is from El Salvador. It even says so. Ooh, dropped it, caught it. Says so right there. El Salvador. And this, like all of their sheaths, is really freaking nice. Condor does an amazing job on their sheaths. This one is a pivoted dangler. It is really, really nice. Has a leg tie. Beautiful freaking sheath. Let's see. Thickness, 0.14. Finish is ultra black coated. That means not just black, but ultra black, right? Dark as night. Let's see. It's listed as a knife, not a machete. It is a clip point. Obviously, you can see that. Handle material, there we go, is Santoprene rubber. So I'm assuming Santoprene, obviously it's a rubber, is like polypropylene, only softer. So Santoprene is like a less dense rubber than polypropylene. The tang is full, so it does go all the way through to your hollow lanyard hole, which is ginormous. Rockwell hardness, here's the thing, 50 to 55. It's softer, so it's less brittle. That really puts it into the machete category. Let's see. The blade length is 11.3 inches. It is a convex grind. That's why it doesn't feel so sharp, because it's convex means that instead of the blade this way or this way, I mean the edge, it's this way, right? So that's why you're getting a not extremely sharp edge. It's a rounded edge. And the reason is you have softer steel, right, or softer hardness. You have thin stock, and I believe it's 420 HC. So basically what they're saying is we don't want this to break. So you're putting all this thickness, and I know it's to say all this thickness on a thin blade, but the thickness, right, it's all the way to the edge. So this thing is going to be able to hit and take a beating. Can you sharpen it to make it razor sharp if you want? Absolutely. It's a 420 HC. It will sharpen very, very easily. And before anybody, the ninjas, oh, 420 is garbage, blah, blah, blah. First of all, it comes down to the heat treat. So just end that whole thing. Heat treat, it doesn't matter what it is. The right heat treat, the right temperament, any steel is going to work. Any steel is going to work. As long as it's heat treated and tempered right, that's what matters, not what kind of steel it is. Get it through your freaking heads. Not only that, but 420 is amazing when it comes to corrosion resistance. All this black on here, that's painted on for looks because it doesn't need it. It's a 420 HC. This thing is not going to get all rusty and crabby on you. It's a very, very great steel. Some of the best diver knives into the ocean where it's going to rust some steel. Some of the very best in the world divers knives are made of 420 HC. Who else does 420 HC, D-Bad? Let's answer that question. Buck. Buck has made a living of 420 HC steel madness. And they do have some of the best heat treats on the planet. Don't believe me? When you get a Buck, you know, they'll have a little name with a little fire on it. Look it up. Look it up. That dude, Paul Boss, can heat treat. So that's what it comes down to. It is listed best use as survival. So it's saying it's a survival Bowie. I don't know. For me, it's still, I'm going to treat this like a machete, but that doesn't mean we're not going to test it like a Bowie. So let's get out there and check this thing. All right, so I got it out here. We got some sunlight. I figured I'd give you a good look. One thing I didn't mention is it has the rubber O-rings in it. They're nice, big, fat rubber O-rings. And while this is already grippy and nice, it just adds a little extra. A lot of people say, like, oh, you always knock the K-bar grip and blah, blah, blah. But all you have to do is add rubber O-rings. Sure, if you add rubber O-rings, it's going to be better, but you shouldn't have to. And that's why I say it all the freaking time. You should not have to modify a knife to make it usable. You should not have to. These guys have them already in there, which means I don't have to buy a knife and then do something to it to make it worth buying. If you have to make a knife worth buying yourself, then the manufacturer or the maker didn't do a good job. So, you know, that's why that is. So let's get this thing going. Let's do some 4-foot drops, and we'll see how the balance goes. It should drop really nicely. Look at how far that dove into the wood. Not so bad. All right, so let's do a couple hard downward throws, and we'll see if the tip is going to hold on there very well. Woo! Man, that thing hits solid. Golly. So here's the line right there. That's how deep that thing goes in there. That sharpened swedge and thin profile. Look at that. That was oh my gosh, that's really in there. There we go. That really dives in. I have to say, it's not a very thick blade, but the thickness of the blade maintains all the way through just until the edge. There's no extra beveling and all this where you're losing material. So it's a lot stronger, or it's going to be a lot stronger than it actually looks. How sharp is it? I'm not sure if we're going to be, it's push cut sharp. And if I said that out loud, well, don't I look like an idiot? It's push cut sharp, something I 195% did not expect. When you have a convex edge, it usually means it's not going to be razor sharp, just the way it is. To push cut through the 1/2-inch nylon rope like that, all right, impressed. All right, so let's use the extension cord here. Bada boom, bada bang, no problem. Did the extension cord jack it up any? No, it did not. And it's a real extension cord with real stuff in it. All right, so let's dig that guy in there. Let's test this convex edge. Let's test it. Oh man, it is a carving edge, I'll tell you that. So it says it's a survival knife. Well, I mean, if I need to survive, I need fire. If I need fire, I need feathers. That's pretty nice right there. That's pretty, golly, I can't stick it in there and get it out. It's so sharp, or so pointy, I should say. All right, so let's get us a nice tip here. This is carving without wasting time. That's the best part. You get your tip down to pretty close, and then you can use your blade just to finish it off. And this is great because if you need pit spikes or and pit spikes, a lot of people don't understand when I say pit spikes. When if I'm camping out in the woods where it's not like a campground, and I have to worry about critters like the kind that can devour you, a pit spike is something that you want to make that's really sharp and pretty narrow, and then fattens up and dig into the ground, right? You make yourself a little hole around your campsite, so you got a little doorway to your tent or whatever you're sleeping in, whatever kind of shelter you got going, and you make a bunch of those and you stick it in. You don't have to make like a 6-foot hole to try and kill something, but just enough to where if this much is sticking out and you have the hole going just above the tip, so if you can make yourself a nice little hole that big, something's going to put their paw down on it. They're going to let out a yell. You're going to know they're there, and they're most likely going to run the heck away. If it's a small enough critter and you make your spikes thin enough, well, then you may have just gotten yourself a little tiny meal. Even if it's just like something the size of a mouse or a squirrel or a chipmunk, things like that. When you're out surviving, you're going to eat anything that comes your way. So, but even something like that, it's going to be able to puncture down and get your kill, which is kind of important. Ooh, right through the knot. There we go. Swing a little harder, and that's what we get out of it. So, does it work like a survival knife? I mean, so far. Let's see if we can use the big guy with the knots. And remember, I've used this plenty of times. Certain knives have gone through it. Certain knives simply haven't. The Gilhibben survival Bowie that some people attribute to some kind of Rambo knife. It could not get through this log. Let's see what the Condor does. Now it is a sharpened swedge, so this is probably going to jack this thing up. But it gets stuck in there, boy. It gets stuck in there, boys. All right, so here is a nice knot right here. I'll even show you. See how big and round that is. These are the areas that don't do certain things good. Well, let's see what we can get out of it. See if I can knock it on here. Try to save the baton a little bit. It's tearing my baton up. Ugh. It is tearing my baton up. So we are on the knot and through the knot. Now, a knife like this obviously isn't going to be used for batoning bigger pieces. You're going to chop yourself some small pieces and baton through there. Do a little bit of prying, get out the knot, and that's what you're going to use it for. So realistically, in a survival situation, camp situation, you're not going to need to get through something this big. I mean, that's just being 100% realistic. But knowing that it can, that, my friends, is the important part. That's the important part. Let's see if we can do a little belt shaving. Remember, 2 pieces of leather, 2 pieces of foam. And look at that. So that tells me if it can do that. Oh gosh, it buries in there. If it can do that, I'm wondering if it's going to have any ability to skin right through the thick leather. It's a leather saddlebag, and that just went right through. Let's see if we can't just get a nice little... Look at that. So, is it going to be an emergency skinner? Is it a skinning knife? No. No, don't even pretend to think that it's a skinning knife. But in an emergency, are you going to be able to get through some flesh and take off the hide of whatever the hell you need to? Abso-freaking-lutely. Let's see if it's going to bend the tip here, because it's got a really pointy tip. If it bends it, I'll just have to straighten it, and it did not. That's pretty good. That's pretty good indeed. Now, it does have this little eye hole here, and clearly you guys know what that's for. Clearly, because I don't. I mean, what can you use that for? I mean, maybe leverage for different things, or I have no idea. I have no idea what they use that for, what its intended purpose is for. All I know is it's on there, and it's on there. All right, so let's take some of this sycamore and cut through a piece of that. And we're going to take a piece that's not too thick to start. We're just going to see if we can't knock it. This is some pretty hard stuff. Wow. Wow. It definitely feels machete-ish, but being short, it hits like a knife instead of a... And did you see that? This is why it's a good thing to have a hat. I came back and the swedge hit my brim. Woo! And that's a sharpened swedge. Oh, sharpened swedge. Let's test it. Imagine that. The death of D-Bad. How'd it happen? I had a backswing. All right. This swedge is nicely sharpened. So, it's going to work both directions, but let's hit something a little bit thicker, a little bit more solid. What do you say? So what are we finding out about this thing? We know it can be an emergency batoning knife, we know that it can be a kindling knife. We know that it can be an emergency skinning knife. We know that it can be a knife to break open needs like making tent spikes and pit spikes and spears and arrows and things like that. We know it's going to be able to do all that. We definitely know it's going to be a slasher and a stabber. I mean, a stabbing supreme knife right there. But is it a chopper? Let's see how fast we can get through this thing. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, not so bad. Not so bad. So, here it's listed, sorry, it's listed as a survival knife. What I know about this thing is that I can use it to survive. Let's try and do a little heavier chopping with the swedge. And if you have to do chopping, things like that, and you're worried about destroying an edge, maybe you don't have anything to sharpen with, it would behoove you to turn this thing around, because the handle is equal on both sides, and do your chopping with the swedge. That way you can save your main edge for food prep, for things like if you need to do any kind of skinning, or just your finer works. Having that sharpened swedge is an amazing necessity, because especially one this long, it allows you to save your edge by using the reverse side. That's awesome. I mean, you just watched it. We were able to chop 100% fully and solid with the swedge. All right, so now we're gonna do just a little bit more chopping, because why not? It's a knife, and this is a knife channel, and this is what we do. All right, so let's see if I can get you down there. All right, there's a big piece. We're just gonna see what kind of damage we can do to a big log. Again, unnecessary in a survival situation, unless you're building yourself your forever cabin and you only had a knife. Well, first of all, you don't belong building a cabin if all you had was a knife, but who knows? Maybe you're going for a Guinness record. So, as far as chopping, I don't know if you can see the amount of wood that's spraying. Well, let's do this offhand. How is this thing going to swing offhand? Because you never know when you're going to damage yourself. Right now I have 2 broken bones in this ankle, and well, my heel and my ankle. I walked 5 miles yesterday, went to the gym and did legs today. I just don't care. So you never know when you're going to damage something to the point where you're going to need the other hand or the other leg to work. And this thing is just as comfortable in my right hand as it is in my left. Guys, I had doubts. Think about it. This Condor Jungle knife has been out for a very long time now. I never bought it. Never had an interest. I thought, it's really thin. It's kind of machete-like. What am I ever gonna do with this knife? Kind of useless in like a survival situation, right? Bite me, says I to me. I was wrong. And I'm glad to say when I'm wrong. And this time I was deadly wrong, because this knife is proving to be just that, a knife. This is not some gimmick. It's balanced well, especially for such a thin blade with such a fat handle. You'd think the balance would be off, but it actually turns pretty well in the hand. Not too bad. Let's see. Some of the knives can't do this. This one can. This one can. Some of the knives can't penetrate this. This one can. I mean, no tip damage at all. At all. That thing is pure. That thing is pure. Gosh, I'm really digging this. Let's see. Let's see. back way up here because this is long. Okay, so little do you know, I wasn't trying to throw it in by the tip. I wanted to throw it in by the handle like you see in some movies where they knock people out. So I was going to try and stun a rabbit. Now I'm going to try the tip. All right, so let's try that again. Oh, it was right there. The edge hit the top. I just need to aim lower. There we go. First try. All right, so any bending because we did hit a little sideways? Not really. I can feel like a little right here, like a little piece. You can't see it, but I can feel it. Let's drag it and see what it would take to get rid of that. Yeah, I can feel just a little tiny baby, like almost like a fold on the tip. I don't have a rock right here, but I guarantee you a rock. Oh yeah, okay, I just used just the wood. And I just put it the other way. Right there, it's gone, I think. And just like that, that little fold is gone. Gone. And I'm talking, it was like, I could just feel it. Like I didn't see it, but I could feel it with my, just the tip of my finger. You know, you could feel like a little burr. That's all it was a tiny burr. And it hit this way and wiggled. And that's all I got out of it was like a tiny little burr. Dead straight. Woo! Condor. Let me tell you, Condor. Somebody over there did it right. They designed a knife that I said to myself, it's probably not going to be anything substantial. It's probably not going to be strong enough. It's not going to be thick enough. It's not going to be da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, guess what it was? It was all those things and a little bit more. This thing works, man. This thing is strong arm. I have to say, I like it. I like it. I waited a long time before buying it. And it's funny because I knew the knife so well without ever holding it. Like I just knew everything about it. When I got to Smoky Mountain Knife Works, I said, oh, I'm going to need that one. The guy goes to pull it out and hand it to me for me to check it out. And I was like, oh, I don't need to check it out. I said, I know the knife. And this knife is good, man. This knife is good. And I believe it's on a really good price. I think these are like sub 50, whatever it is. Got the 420 HC right there etched in, which I really like, or stamped in. The guard, the rubber on the guard is soft enough where you can manipulate it with your hand, but stiff enough to where you're not going to pass through it on accident. It's the same thing here. And I can say with great honesty, when I was chopping, I can feel it flex, and it left 0 hot spots because the knife was working with me instead of against me. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm actually impressed with this thing, to the point where I can see this being a rotational camp knife, without a doubt. It's a cool blade, man. This thing is tough. I'm looking at the edge now. There is nothing wrong with the edge. Now, here's my suggestion. I do not suggest bang and pry because you can bend the tip a little bit. I wouldn't tell you to use it as your thrower, but if you need to hit some game, I guarantee you can with this. If you know how to throw, you're going to be able to hit some game. I can tell you this, using this and these and this, you could use this as a lashing weapon, and you can make some kind of spear for fish, things like that. If you go too far through and you hit a rock, let's say you're fishing and you're in a shallow bed, you can damage the tip, but you can fix the tip also with that same thing, that same rock you might have damaged the tip with, you can use that same rock to fix it. But if you're going to lash and throw it through an animal, I would have great confidence in the strength of this tip going through an animal's hide or flesh, and having no damage. So if you were going to use this for boars or anything like that, I would have great confidence using this without worrying about it damaging. All in all, it's a really well-built knife, man. This thing is crazy cool. You can see right here with the ricasso where how that edge forms up, and you can see that beautiful V right there. It's just nice, man. Good job by Condor all the way around. This is one I can definitely tell you that I recommend. You know, there's a lot of knives that I say, oh yeah, it's decent, blah blah blah, but I don't recommend it. This is a knife that I can physically, openly, and honestly say, if you bought this knife, you would not be disappointed. It's a cool knife, man. It's way better in the hand than I thought, and it's bigger than I thought. I mean, look at it. That's a good sized knife. A lot of people say, man, D-Bad, that knife's huge to me. It's so small in your hands. This one even in my hands, it looks like a full knife. So, I mean, think about it. If you're a little dude, this thing's going to be like a sword. Man, it's really cool. All right, so that's it for that one, man. The Condor Jungle Bowie. D-Bad recommended. Woo, yeah, I am Donnie B all day. Until next knife.